Good evening and welcome to the Coeur d'Alene City Council meeting for January 3rd, 2023. We'll call this meeting to order and note that all council are present. Our invocation tonight will be provided by Bob Elbing of Lutheran Church of the Master. Please stand.
Please pray with me. Good and gracious God, what were you thinking? You gather us into communities, we elect leaders to lead us, and then we go at each other like children on an unsupervised playground. So forgive us when we're immature and recalcitrant. Forgive us when we put our own interests above the greater good. Cure our madness and make us a peaceful city fashioned after your kingdom. Bless these men and women seated here who are willing to bear the burden of adulthood and leadership. Thank you, Lord. Thank you for the gifts of Sherry and Renata who work for the city and so many others, all in law enforcement, first responders, for those who work behind desks and those who work behind mops. For all who spend their days serving this community, we give you thanks. We ask your healing presence on all those affected by the murders in Moscow, and we give thanks for all those helping to bring justice to bear. So now, Lord, bless us so that what we do here tonight may be done to your glory. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Thank you very much. Christy, would you please lead us in the pledge?
Yes, sir.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Are there any amendments to the agenda from the council? Seeing none, we'll move on to announcements from the council. None? Holy shnikes.
No, sorry, guys. 2 weeks.
I do have a recommendation for 2 appointments to the Historic Preservation Commission, Ann Anderson and Michael Weir. I would appreciate a motion of support for that.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor, respond with aye.
Aye.
All opposed with nay. Motion carries. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to move to approve consent calendar as presented, including Resolution 23001.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion on the motion? Hearing none. Oops.
I have
Clerk,
a
take the roll, please.
question.
You have a question?
Yes. We often have on there that somebody is selling cemetery plot back. Is there any reason why we don't put the amounts? Troy, or any?
They would be coming back in for what they paid for it. So I
Right.
guess we could,
Thank you.
if you'd
Just-
like to have that on.
It seems like might be kind of good public information if people want to plan or no, just, anyway. Unless there was some reason not to, that might be helpful.
I'm not sure the mics are on. The audience can't hear what's going on.
No.
Couldn't.
Microphones. Do we charge more if there's still a body in the?
Now? Hear me now? No. Really? Wow.
It sounds like they're on.
Well, that's above my pay grade. Okay.
Hello. That's you.
Testing, testing.
Yeah, there you go.
Can you hear us now? Okay.
Better.
Hello?
Uh-oh, they can hear us. Turn it back up. Okay. We have a motion and a second before us. Will the clerk take the roll, please?
McEvers,
Yes.
Gookin.
Yep.
English,
Yes?
Wood,
Yes.
Evans.
Yes.
Miller.
Aye.
Motion carries. We are now at the point in the agenda for public comment. The first person is Vicki Conway. Jacqueline Doyle, I assume you're going to wait for your presentation. So then the next one would be Charles Scripter. Good evening, ma'am.
This is regarding the Coeur project. I know growth is inevitable, and we know it happens, and there's no stopping it. However, I would prefer to live in a city that takes the old and what is working into account and not destroy what we have by putting in the new. Those of us who live in Indian Meadows cherish our surroundings. Peaceful streets where children can ride their bikes and people can walk their dogs and visit with their neighbors. Where sometimes someone rides their horse down the street, and we even have an occasional moose. Great photo ops. It's a quiet neighborhood, and we like it that way. Growth does not have to mean we get brushed aside in the scramble for new dense areas. We can both coexist with a little thought. I have looked at the proposed map, and I have a few concerns. Number one, change Hutter from a 2-lane road to a 4-lane road, and that will accommodate the extra traffic from Coeur. Since it goes north to south, it would handle the extra traffic that needs to go that direction. Open an egress onto Hutter north of Armstrong Farms, and that would eliminate the access needed for Spears to tie into Nez Perce. That way you don't have to go through that neighborhood. The first egress onto Hutter appears to be by the overpass to the highway. So why would we go into West Woodside unnecessarily? You can go on to Celtice. Arrowhead is not needed to accommodate the additional traffic, and Hutter would feed into and runs north to south, which would hit Celtice, Hanley, Prairie, and these run east to west. Many of our housing developments are not built for extra through traffic from the adjoining developments. That's why we need to focus on our main roads. Emergency vehicles don't usually weave through our type of neighborhoods, and they avoid them as much as possible. Another consideration, Indian Meadows has only been plowed 3 times this winter. We have been on Appaloosa, Arrowhead, and Nez Perce riddled with sheets of thick ice and new potholes even now. Before the temperature went up, you couldn't see the ice because of all the slush and mess. Many of our corners still cannot be navigated over 1 to 2 miles an hour without sliding around them. Even our garbage trucks wear chains. Also, much of Atlas was repaved this summer, and due to the heavier traffic, it's now riddled with potholes and cracks. They patched potholes by the gas station, and within 48 hours, the patches were popping out. This will continue to get worse when all the houses and townhomes on Celtice are completed, and the development has moved up to over 600 units. Adding Coeur traffic to this will be an accident waiting to happen. Please be mindful of the changes you're making to our lives when you open up the streets to all of this traffic. Am I out of time?
Thank you.
Yep.
Okay. Well, then, thank you for your time.
Thank you. Charles Scripter, and then next is Don Gardner.
Hello. I actually just put my name down in case I wanted to comment after Jacqueline Doyle's presentation about the Garden Lofts project, but I will go ahead and take the opportunity to make a couple comments on that. In that, the City Council and the Design Board are here to protect the citizens of the community, and in this case, it seems that the Design Board, when reviewing the FARs for the project, may have stretched in favor of the developer rather than the community in terms of what's being allowed to be done and the bonuses being rewarded to the developer on this project. In addition, the project is going to basically take up the entire half of that block, and there's already parking issues there and snow removal issues there and a lot of foot traffic on Garden Street going to the skate park. And so there's a lot of concerns in that area about what this project is going to do, both in terms of impact to traffic, snow removal, pedestrian traffic, and the overall look and feel of that building as it pertains to the downtown core of Coeur d'Alene. That's all I want to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Don Gardner?
Hi. I live on Moccasin in Indian Meadows as well. And first of all, this is the first city council meeting I've been to, and I appreciate all of what you do here. Thank you for your service to our community. I also am concerned about the potential traffic that will access our neighborhood because of the Coeur addition and the plan to come through our streets there, including Nez Perce, Appaloosa, Arrowhead, Woodside. My wife and I have horses, and we use that community to exercise them. One of the horses is a mini, and she rides a cute little horse cart behind the mini around the neighborhood. Once those doors are open to traffic, that's going to be unsafe. There are no sidewalks to speak of in our neighborhood, so I want to appeal to you to reconsider access going through our area of Indian Meadows to Coeur. Thank you for what you do.
Thank you. Shelley Moore? Joanne Curtis? Next is, after that is John Huff.
Mayor and City Council members, thank you for allowing us to speak today. I'd like to make a few comments also about the Coeur project. I live on Buckskin Road in Indian Meadows. We moved there 11 and a half years ago because of the uniqueness of the neighborhood. All the lots are large. There's the only traffic there now are cars who are going to a home. There's no through traffic whatsoever. The lots are large, they're very quiet, and that's why we purchased our home there. 3 years ago, we had our home appraised to refinance, and the appraiser made the comment that you will never find a neighborhood like this within the city limits again. That will just never happen. And it's my understanding that Coeur needs 2 access roads on the Atlas side, but the city's requiring 5. And I just ask that you reconsider the egress points into Coeur and that you not destroy our neighborhood to create a new one. Other concerns I have are access roads on the Atlas side. Atlas Road right now is very difficult to navigate. During busy times of day, you cannot make a left-hand turn. And the roundabout at the bottom of Atlas on Celtice Way sometimes is backed up for blocks. Getting here tonight, it was backed up all the way up the hill on Atlas Road. And that's before the neighborhood down on the river is a reality. I know there's a few people that live there, but it's full of buildings that have not been, that aren't inhabited yet. And Coeur is going to really impact both of those access points. And I would invite you, if you've not been to Indian Meadows, that you come and drive through it. Drive up and down Buckskin, Arrowhead, and just see what it's like, because I cannot imagine what will happen to our neighborhood when Coeur is fully developed on the south end. Thank you very much. I appreciate all you do.
Thank you. John Huff, and then next is Steve Rotano.
Mayor, Council, by the way, Mayor Hammond, thank you for pronouncing my name correctly. It's refreshing. I'm here to talk a little bit briefly about the project on Garden Avenue behind the Roosevelt Inn, which I own. When I was at the design committee meeting on this project, I made a few comments on that, but I really believe that they swept a couple of things aside that pertain to the design, but said they had no purview over, which is the proper flow of traffic around this new development. I had the opportunity recently to go through Rich and Associates parking study that the City of Coeur d'Alene did for Midtown Project. And yes, it's apples and oranges, but there are some items in there that are apples to apples, and I just want to address a couple of those very quickly. In the hotel industry, as a general rule, when a couple show up, they're in one car. So, our parking spaces are designed one parking space per room, and we actually have more than that. When you're looking at condos, even a one-bedroom unit usually has two people in it. And I don't know too many households that have only one car with two people in it. Almost everybody has their own vehicle. That creates a problem with parking based on the numbers that they've presented for this project. Parking on the street. As you know, this development is very close to the county courthouse and county offices and law offices. Every morning from 6:30 in the morning till 5 in the evening, the streets are completely occupied with street parking by employees and public servants that work. And this is not shared parking, folks. It's supposed to be shared parking, but it's not. They're there all day long. They don't move. That's going to create a problem, especially if you have an overflow capacity on this condo facility that doesn't have adequate parking assigned to it. Another item that we want to talk about that the study hit on was the appropriate use of alleyways in the city of Coeur d'Alene. Appropriate use of alleyways, according to the study by Rich and Associates, is for loading zones, bringing materials in, providing product for businesses. We have that issue. Even the garbage collection, we've made deals with so that they come at a certain time during the day so that they don't interfere with the smooth flow of our guests driving down through the alley after they're leaving their parking spots and departing or arriving, either way. With this development, the way it's designed, they're using the alley almost solely as their egress for the whole thing. Oh, and my time is up. Last thing I just want to point out, and I thank you for your time and your attention to this, I'm not opposed to the project. I just want it to go through in a manner which doesn't create future issues for us as a business that's already established and for the city of Coeur d'Alene. Thank you.
Thank you. Steve Rotano?
Hello, my name's Steve Rotano, and I live at 3503 Moccasin Road in Indian Meadows. I choose to live here over 20 years ago because it was one of the only places right outside of town where I could have a piece of property that was zoned for horses, animals, goats, and chickens, and other animals. It is a quiet neighborhood where people walk, kids ride their bikes, and owners ride their horses as well. All this will change if Arrowhead and Nez Perce and Appaloosa are opened up to Hutter. It will become a racetrack with an accident waiting to happen. I am concerned that there will be zoning changes. I believe our neighborhood should be left as it is with no cut-throughs to the new development. Atlas is already a mess, and our streets are not taken care of. We also do not need construction crews using our streets. We also don't need so many homes and apartment clusters in the same area. Don't we have enough? But thank you for hearing me, and I appreciate all the work you guys do too.
Thank you.
All right? Thank you.
Patty Rotano?
Good evening. I also live on Moccasin Road in Indian Meadows, and I've lived there for over 20 years. And we brought our children here because it was safe and a quiet neighborhood where they had room and freedom to play. I would like that to continue for my grandchildren as well. One of the things I am concerned with is people that live on all these streets that are going to be opened up. What is that going to do to their quality of life? And if you widen their streets, what happens to their property value? We have been a sought-after neighborhood because of our acreage and zoning properties. What will happen to all of our home values? There will be an endless stream of cars cutting through from Hutter to Atlas to save time to get across town. And this will also yield more trash polluting our streets and our neighborhood. Another concern I have is that by opening up these streets, we will be subject to more traffic, which will bring more potential for crime into our neighborhood. We have been very fortunate over the years that Indian Meadows has had a low crime rate. Our streets are not maintained, and we've heard other people talk about that. Referring back to the article in the press back in October, it was said that there is a need for more affordable housing in the area, and the Coeur project could eventually house 4,500 more families. We are surrounded by apartments and homes, and they just keep being built. Surely there must be a way we could designate some of those apartments and homes to affordable housing so our young people can stay here and live. And I was concerned or wondering about the 900 jobs that it said it would create. Are they temporary while the project is being built, or are they ones that will remain? And are they just retail and fast food jobs? I understand growth and development is inevitable, but what can we do with what we already have before we overbuild and forever ruin our beautiful neighborhood? Thank you, and I appreciate you listening to me. Thank you for listening to my concerns.
And lastly, Suzanne Knutson.
Hi.
Sorry.
Good evening. I'm Suzanne Knutson, 4208 West Appaloosa Road, Coeur d'Alene. I'm a resident of Indian Meadows as well. Tonight I'm reading a letter from my friend Ron McGee, who forgot his glasses, but he lives at 7253 West Big Sky Drive in Kootenai County. He writes regarding his concerns about the proposed Coeur development that may be built between his home off of Hutter and Atlas Road. Thank you, Mr. Mayor and City Council members, for your time and for this opportunity to address you this evening. I have read both the new and old comprehensive plans, and I know the amount of work hours that have gone into this plan and the effort being made to try and follow this plan while working with those affected by proposals that come to the Planning Department and the City Council. Hillary and Sean have been helpful to me, and I thank them, as well as the other people who are working at the office. As you know, the comprehensive plan is a vision based on present knowledge and goals. It must be flexible and able to be changed or amended. Idaho Code 67-6509 regarding amendments gives the council power to do this, in my understanding. Idaho Code 67-6511 on zoning also gives the council the power to change or amend zoning. During the October 11 Planning Commission meeting, commissioners were very concerned about traffic, zoning, and how the property owners on the east and south sides of the ACI would be affected by the Coeur project. Unfortunately, they put off addressing these concerns until the PUD stage and after the annexation and zoning is approved. They also approved a zoning permitting right to 3 times more than the applicant said he needed. City Council will most likely continue to hear input from the many residents living in the surrounding neighborhoods affected by the proposed annexation and zoning changes and project proposal. While I am a resident on the west side of the proposed Coeur development, my request is that the City Council take some time to look closely at the comp plan and zoning and make amendments to both in order to protect the property rights of current residents based on Idaho Code. You will be asked to determine locations of arterial and collectors that will be needed for ingress and egress for the whole ACI. Why are these not being added before the zoning is approved and before the PUD stages begin? None of the proposed roads that go through farther than Atlas according to the KMPO plan at this point. The applicant has been very cooperative with the schools and the planning department, but would not let planning know how many units or the type of units and where they will be built. It seems that the applicant is being given carte blanche on a conceptual and non-binding master plan. Again, thank you, Mr. Mayor and council members, for all you are doing on behalf of your current constituents and our community. I'm confident that you will take the concerns you hear regarding this proposal into consideration and see the need for amendments before ruling when it comes time. I think your idea from the December 20 meeting to have a workshop and a site visit to Indian Meadows neighborhood is a great idea, and I look forward to your decision that will be fair to all concerned parties. Thank you. Ron McGee.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Mayor.
Jim?
Yes.
Thank you. I just wanted to mention that the hearing is scheduled for, the Coeur hearing is scheduled for February 7th at 1600. That's 2 hours earlier than our council meeting normally starts. So I just want to let you know if you haven't heard that. And I wanted to ask Troy, as Suzanne just said, are we scheduling a site visit so we can go and look at the location before the hearing?
The challenge is the legal process on a quasi-judicial hearing, on how we would notice that and how we would have everyone involved. So staff has not figured out how to legally get that done. Councilmember Gookin.
So the answer is no.
May I follow up, Mr. Mayor?
Certainly.
We had also talked, maybe this is the same issue we'll come up against, we had talked about having a workshop prior to an actual hearing, so we could really take in more information instead of trying to do it all in one night. Is that possible?
My recommendation, based on the legal process, would be in the event that council hears all the information, council can table a decision seeking more information so that you get everyone on the record. And if you came up with, we need to have this, it could be supplied so that the public hearing can take place in the fashion that it's designed so that all parties can be a party to that.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
And I would just add that, we can all individually drive through there. I have several.
Many, yeah.
No, we cannot.
Well, I'm very familiar.
What do you mean? This is going to be a public hearing, and therefore your decision must be made on the evidence presented at that hearing.
Right.
That's why a workshop or a drive-by, that's all extrajudicial information that you would be bringing to the table.
We can't even
Drive
drive
through
through
a
Indian
neighborhood.
Meadows and enjoy the potholes and the ice.
Correct. As the judges always told us in jury trials, if you happen to drive by there, that's fine, just don't pay any attention.
Mr. Mayor, if I could just add to it, though, we're all locals. We've all lived here a long time, and we're all very familiar with Indian Meadows.
Yeah.
Actually, because my wife and I are garage sale people. We do live in less than a garage door. I've traveled your neighborhood many times, so in fact, there isn't a neighborhood in this community I haven't gotten to know because of all the garage sales over the years. Our next issue is an appeal hearing of the Design Review Commission decision for the garden lofts and townhouses. This appeal is made by Jacqueline Doyle. Let me kind of take you through how this will work. The appellant will have an opportunity to tell the council that an error was made. City staff will provide a report. The applicant will be able to address the city council. The appellant will again provide an opportunity, 3 to 5 minutes for rebuttal, and then following all that, the hearing will be closed by the mayor and city council will deliberate and render a decision. So, Randy, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor and Council, and Happy New Year. The matter before you is an appeal of a decision of the City Design Review Commission. The applicant is 512 North First Street LLC, and the appellant is Jacqueline Doyle. To give you a little bit of an overview of the process, the Design Review Commission, also known as the DRC, has a very specific purpose under the municipal code. It was formed for 4 purposes: to protect property rights and values, to enhance the built environment, make reports, hold public meetings, hearings, and perform all other duties as may be prescribed by law, to review development proposals as required by the municipal code, and to provide recommendations to the city council on issues that the council may refer to the commission. The DRC is required, and that's why we're here today, it is required to review any new construction in the downtown overlay north side, the DON, infill overlay districts, among other specific projects. Now, the appeal from a DRC decision is governed by very specific rules as set out in the municipal code. First of all, you as council must decide the appeal on the record that is before you. In other words, neither the appellant, nor the applicant, nor even the city are allowed to present new evidence tonight for your consideration. The entire record is in your packet. Second, only the city staff and the appellant and the applicant may participate in the hearing. No general public testimony may be taken by city code. A couple of gentlemen came up during public comment and addressed this issue, but their comments are not part of the appeal. They're not something that you can consider. The third issue is that the appellant, Ms. Doyle, has the burden of establishing by a preponderance of the evidence that an error was made by the DRC, meaning that the DRC either applied or ignored the applicable design standards and guidelines or otherwise committed an error of fact or law. Now, the term a preponderance of the evidence means that the evidence must show something to be more probably true than not true. In my trial practice, we usually describe that as a 50% rule. You had to prove your case by 51%, if that's helpful. Fourth, the appellant, Ms. Doyle, must prove also by a preponderance of the evidence that she was prejudiced by the DRC decision. In other words, that her rights have been harmed. Fifth, you can only make a decision on those matters that were within the DRC purview at the time of the hearing. In other words, things that are part of the adopted design standards and guidelines. The code specifically states that objections to the development, its height, intensity, parking, or traffic impacts are not grounds for relief on appeal because they are not design review standards. The code also specifically says no comment shall be taken on the matter by the DRC, which can't be modified by the commission, including but not limited to basic zoning requirements, the floor area ratio, building height, density, or use. Finally, sixth, you can affirm or you can reverse the DRC decision in whole or in part. You can even send it or part of it back to the DRC for further action or clarification. In this case, Ms. Doyle has filed a notice of appeal in a timely manner, and she raised 8 issues in that notice. Only 4 are subject to an appeal under our code. The 4 issues for you to decide are numbers 1, 2, 3, and 6. The lack of a quorum, abuse of discretion regarding FAR bonuses, an issue regarding the property lines, and a violation of the massing basic guidelines. The other issues, parking, snow easement, another complaint about density, and outdoor space for tenants are not within the DRC purview and are not properly part of the appeal. So I will go through each of the issues just to give you an idea of what you will be deciding tonight. First of all, this is a picture of the property. The property that is seeking to be developed is this empty lot. Originally 6 lots, now 1. Ms. Doyle lives here at 121 East Garden Avenue. Ms. Doyle has a short-term rental permit covering her property, as well as a home occupation certificate. The applicant's property is in the downtown core zoning district and is in the DON infill overlay district. I think it's going to also be useful for you to understand how the DRC does its review under the city code. The DRC cannot make any decision on matters that it has no power to modify, standards that it has no power to modify, which includes the basic floor area ratio allowance, building height, density, and use. Those are covered by the code. They aren't part of the DRC's mission. In fact, the DRC's mission is quite clear in the code, says it several times, that it is to analyze a project with regard to the standards and guidelines adopted by you, the City Council. The DRC doesn't get to adopt its own standards and guidelines, does not get to use its own criteria in reviewing a project. So let's go to the issues that are appealable. The first issue is the quorum. There is a handout entitled Design Review Process, which is given to participants before a DRC hearing. That handout, unfortunately, said that the quorum of the DRC for purposes of rendering a decision is 5 members. There were 4 members who sat on this particular case. Unfortunately, that handout was outdated. It had not been modified when this council changed the quorum requirement in 2016 to 4 members. The current code states that a quorum is 4 members. There were 4 members who participated in the matter. Therefore, the quorum requirement was met. The handout, because it was in error, does not somehow change the quorum requirement. The quorum requirement is what the code says. In addition, Ms. Doyle has not been prejudiced by the incorrect information regarding the quorum. The second issue is the FAR bonuses. Now, every property in the DON, infill overlay district, is, as a matter of right, entitled to a 1.0 floor area ratio. In other words, you take the total square footage of the property times 1, and that's how big the building can be. You can also go up to 2 times that size with various bonuses. The bonuses are classified as minor amenities or major amenities. There are 6 possible minor amenities. There are 4 possible major amenities, and it's up to the applicant to request 1 or more bonuses. Minor amenities entitle a property owner to an increase of 0.2 for each amenity. Major amenities entitle a property owner to an increase of a 0.5 floor area ratio for each. Now, when the staff originally looked at this project, they made their calculations based on the fact that there are 3 buildings, 2 townhomes and a condominium building, and attempted to decide what bonuses were needed for those 3 buildings. But the city code specifically states that you calculate the floor area ratio based on the entire amount of the property and the entire floor area of all the buildings on that property. You don't look at them individually. So it became apparent as we looked at this further that only 1 major amenity would be required to create the bonus necessary for the proposed project. The applicant requested a bonus based on a minor amenity, upgraded materials on the building. This amenity, this bonus, is not in fact needed. However, if council decides that it is, then the issue is whether the statement use of brick and stone in the building facade means only brick and stone. That is what Ms. Doyle has argued. Staff, however, believes that that is just an example and that council can grant a bonus on any kind of upgraded materials on the building, the purpose being to get a better product. More importantly, based for purposes of this appeal, are the major amenities. And it's in my staff report why you only need the one major amenity given the size of the parcel and the size of the buildings. The first major amenity requested was exterior public space. And that the code requires that such space be available for public use from 7 a.m. to dusk, must be an area equal to at least 2% of the total interior floor space of the development, with no dimension less than 8 feet, must include landscaping, textured paving, pedestrian scaled lighting, and seating. The DRC found that all of these requirements were met and that the applicant was entitled to a 0.5 FAR bonus. As far as the property lines are concerned, I believe, I'm not sure, but Ms. Doyle may be drawing attention to setback requirements. If she's suggesting that the townhomes are on separate parcels, we would find that that is not correct. This parcel of property was originally 6 separate parcels, but it has been combined into one. So it is to be viewed as one in terms of the setbacks. The setback guidelines for the DON infill overlay district require at least 10 feet and no more than 20 feet from the edge of a public right-of-way. Setbacks are based on existing property lines, not on prior property lines. This is the plan that was submitted to the DRC. It's kind of hard to see, but here's the edge of the buildings. This dimension here is listed at 10 feet, and then there is another section here that looks like it's 10 feet or less to the public right-of-way. So therefore, the setbacks on the plans are between 10 and 20 feet as required by code. The final issue that the council must decide on this appeal is the massing standard in the design guidelines and standards. That standard provides for distinctions between the base, the middle, and top of multi-story buildings. Here are 2 renderings of the building as submitted by the applicant. The DRC determined that there were 3 distinct levels, the top showing a crenellated various variations in height, the middle section containing a lot of glass, a lot of windows, and the base containing decorative concrete and a covered glass enclosure entrance at the base. So as noted earlier, here's another angle view of that. As noted earlier, council has 3 options on each of the appealable issues: to affirm the DRC decision, to reverse the DRC decision, or to remand to the DRC for further action or clarification. I can answer any questions at this time or defer to the appellant to make her presentation.
Dan? Hey, Mr. Mayor. So, Randy, we got this in our packet, and it said, I don't expect you to read it. It said the design review, this is about how the hearing is supposed to go. And it said the appeal hearing will be conducted as followed: 10 minutes to the appellant, then 10 minutes to the city, then 10 minutes to an applicant, then 3 to 5 minutes for a rebuttal. But we didn't start with the appellant.
Correct.
Why not
because this is a very unusual situation. You don't often hear an appeal on the DRC, and it was felt that it would be good to give you an overview of the process before we began. The code, this municipal code, does not state what you just read. It does not give an order for the presentation of an appeal. And I sent an email to Ms. Doyle this morning indicating that I would make an introductory presentation as an overview before she presented hers.
Okay. The other thing you mentioned, you talked about prejudice.
Yes.
And if I'm interpreting that correctly, that means that the applicant needs to prove that there's been some kind of harm done or that she's somehow affected. Is that true?
That is true.
Is there any way, given our code and that this is a design issue, how the hell would anyone be affected by that?
Well, it would obviously depend on what issue we're talking about. For example, massing. If the appellant did not comply, or if the applicant didn't comply with the massing standards that the council has passed, it could block light, it could obstruct views. There are each issue is individual, and you'd have to look at it. I think there is a possibility for prejudice in any situation, but you have to find it. And I couldn't tell you in this case how she was prejudiced in any of these.
It just seemed like it was kind of a checkmate situation from the start if you have to really prove that a design has impacted you negatively.
And that would be something that council could change if they wanted to amend the code.
And then the other thing was a historical thing. Did this have to go to planning, or was this by right? This project?
This had to go to Design Review Commission.
I know it went to design review, that's why we're here, but was this something that could have been appealed from a planning commission decision, or is this something that the owner is allowed to do by right?
This is something, this project is something that is by right in this zone.
Okay, thank you.
Dan?
Just concerning that handout memo on quorum.
Yes.
Has that been updated or pulled?
Well, if they listen to me, it has been.
Okay.
But I haven't seen the new sheet.
Well, I will trust that's going to happen. Okay.
That was my recommendation.
Woody?
A couple questions on the modifying of the codes. Do you got any times, how long has that been since we've talked about it, seen it on design review? Sorry.
I would say that it's been many years. I don't think, the quorum was the last thing, I think, that was changed in the Design Review Commission section of the code, and that was done shortly after I came here. So it's been at least 8 or 9 or 10 years since anything else has been changed.
And so along the same line as design standards and guidelines, when was that last looked at?
And that's been even longer, I believe.
Okay. Because this is a first, right? It's kind of a first we've ever dealt with this and never quite understood how this works and why. We want a certain look. We don't want flat buildings. We don't want flat roofs. I don't know what we want anymore, because we haven't wanted for a long time. So interesting.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
Thank you. Randy, I don't suppose you want to entirely speak for the Design Review Committee, but
I do not.
maybe you can sort of explain the FAR bonuses. Just listening to you, it appears that those are incentives that are put in place for developers to go the extra mile with public space or maybe with the products used on the building.
That is, I think, the intent of the bonuses is to get something extra that wouldn't otherwise be required.
I mean, it makes sense, but it also kind of clouds the issue on, is there a whole lot of discretion in that, or is it absolutely mapped out, in your opinion?
It's depends on the amenity that we're talking about. Most of them are pretty well mapped out in terms of size, in terms of elements that must be included. For example, the exterior space talks about pedestrian lighting and pedestrian walkways and a certain size. There is some discretion because it's 10 to 20 feet deep. You know, there is a lot of discretion that they can use for the final look. But in terms of adopting the bonus, if it meets the criteria that council has set, then Design Review Commission has to grant that.
Thank you.
Thank you, Randy. Okay, now I will open the appeal hearing, and we'll first ask the appellant to present her case, and we'll have up to 10 minutes to do that. And then city staff will provide their report in 10 minutes, and the applicant will have up to 10 minutes. Good evening.
Thank you. So he has said that only half of them are appealable. I'm going to go ahead and go through all of them just so that you can hear them and let you decide. The design review decision, obviously the quorum of 5 that we were all given, and that was on the public is invalid. So we'll just skip that one. But that goes to show you the concerns of us in the city of Coeur d'Alene is if something that was done 6 years ago is still being handed out, if it's still on the website, if that's still the public knowledge that we have access to, 6 years is a long time not to update something. So it brings a question upon what else has not been updated, and maybe some other things need to be addressed, like maybe coding or verbiage. So the second one is the abuse of discretion for the fire bonuses. They're getting a lot, as you just asked about. In order to get a bonus, it means that a developer is coming in and doing something above and beyond the norm of what we ask of them. And that's a reward in order for them to spend more money to do something for our community, to bring something to it, not overwhelm it like what this building is. And you saw the pictures of it. The massing, sorry, we'll keep to the bonuses. So one of the bonuses is for the use of brick and stone. That is Clearview verbiage. There is no brick, there is no stone. Their upgraded materials that they're quoting are concrete. They have 5 feet of concrete around this building, plain concrete. The rest of it are panels. They are not upgraded material. So if the planning department decides to give them a bonus for the use of average material as upgraded materials, that leaves it open to other developments doing the same thing, or it leads to them being discriminatory towards certain developers and not others if they decide this verbiage is not clear enough, which in my mind it is clear. It's very clear, and I think that the city of Coeur d'Alene, the planning department, the council, the commission, everybody put great effort into making this very clear because they wanted to keep a common thread of that brick and stone throughout our downtown community. We have an art association too. Coeur d'Alene has done a really good job at doing this, and so for them to say, oh, it doesn't really matter on this project seems odd. So the use of brick and stone is a huge bonus. So they're getting the benefit of the bonus, but not actually executing it. One of the other bonuses is the 2% outdoor public space. Their outdoor public space, their 2%, so this is another question we have to ask ourselves is they go back and forth. This is separate projects. No, it's one project. No, it's a separate project. So there's townhouses flanked on either side of First and Second, and in the middle there's 34 condos with a parking garage. So they're using calculations as a whole entire project on some aspects, and on other aspects they're using just the square footage of the condo for the 2%. And that was one of the things that he's claiming I can't do is the property lines. These are townhouses, so that means they will be divided into 11 parcels because a townhouse, by definition, they own their own property. So those townhouses will have to be divided into their own separate parcel. So that means that's 11 parcels, 10 for the townhouses and one giant one for the condos. They have made these, you would think if you've seen, I think you have it, the map of so the condos, between the condos and the townhouse have a driveway that comes from Garden Street to the alleyway. So that's that. The alleyway will be used as a street to enter the parking garage and exit the parking garage. So the 2% they're using, it would make sense for the property line to go on either side of the condo, all the way from the alleyway to Garden Street. But they have made it into a T so that it includes the sides of the townhouses on Garden Street so that they can get their 2%. So they fiddled with these numbers in order to get this 2% public space. In addition to that, the 2% public space is actually just the minimum requirement setback of 10 feet. It includes a park bench on the sidewalk, and that is our public space. And if they really want to look into it, the 2% along that whole Garden Street area will include 2 driveways. So that would be odd to include part of that square footage as public space when it's actually 2 driveways. So that's one of them. Another bonus that they are getting is for the art, public art. So they get, I think, a 0.5 FAR bonus for their public art. Their public art is going to be, which in here it does state it can be a water feature. But we have a lot of artists in here, and we have gone to great extents. Coeur d'Alene has done such a good job about bringing art into our community. So I know it's important to us. I know it's important to our community. And it is supposed to be 1% of the value of the building construction cost. They are putting 3 basalt pillars on either corner, and that is supposed to be 1% of the entire cost of this building. I would have to question that, and I hope that you would too. What is one of the other bonuses? The public, the art, the public space, those are the major amenities that they're getting the bonuses for. So we talked about the property lines and the bonuses. The parking calculations, appealable or not, need to be addressed. There are 80% of these condos being deemed as 1-bedroom apartments. 80%. And according to the code, that means they get 1 parking spot in that parking garage. That's all they have to do. 1. 80%. That means 27 of those condos will have 1 parking spot. In real life, I don't think that's realistic. So, looking further into that, okay, they're trying to do urban living, which makes sense. But these condos have claiming 1 bedroom, they have 2 bathrooms plus a den. So in my mind, the den is actually another bedroom. And most likely, a lot of people will use it as another bedroom. But it's easier to take out the closet and call it a den so that you only have to calculate 1 parking spot per unit. 80% of them are deemed as 1 bedroom. Maybe if 20%, that would be realistic, but 80% of them, and I might be exaggerating, I think it's 79.14%, are deemed as 1 bedroom. So the parking calculations need to be addressed. The snow easement, they talked about that. One of the things about the snow is they've taken up every square foot of this property, of this block, this half block for the buildings and the driveways. They have minimum setback on garden. There's 0 setback on the easement of the alleyway. So they're claiming they're going to haul the snow off, which does make sense. A lot of people do that. They can hire dump trucks and the HOA can pay for that and have it hauled off. Unfortunately, that works in other places. Along this alleyway, we've got the Roosevelt, a well-established business at a historical place, and they have parking spots. I think they have 15. We can ask him, he's here today. They have 15 parking spots on that alleyway. Next to that, adjacent to that, there's an 8-unit apartment complex that claims to have 8 parking spots right on the alleyway. So we've got that on the whole south side of the alleyway. And then on the north side, we've got the 2 driveways between the townhouses and the condos, plus we have an entrance and an exit out of the parking garage. That is like a street. Parking lots, parking spaces, entrances, driveways, that is being treated like a street with no place for the snow. So they claim they're going to stage piling up the snow and hauling it off in that alleyway. How are you going to do that with all these parking spaces, entrances and exits? It doesn't make a lot of sense. It might make sense in other areas where there's an alleyway, where there's a few driveways. That makes sense. It doesn't make sense here. So the massing basic guideline. If you take a look at this building, when you first look at it, do you really see a top, a middle, and a bottom? That's a basic guideline for massing. The city of Coeur d'Alene's done a really good job at other buildings. Like even Monty, who's the architect of this development, has done an excellent job on other projects that he's done. The parking garage between 4th and 3rd, that has massing. It looks fantastic. It's been done really well. So I ask you that it does this on this building too. This looks like a giant box, flat roof, flat sides, with a couple of balconies. The density, I guess we can't talk about that, it's not appealable. The planning department has updated their website, so since this all happened in November, I have gone back and looked at it, and they have done a good job of updating it. They have claimed this zoning is downtown core, and in all actuality is downtown North Overlay, so there are some considerations that need to be taken there. Do you have any questions for me about anything that I've said so far? I'm not used to doing this. I'm not a public speaker, so I want to be clear. As far as if it needs to, that was the first time I had heard about it needs to basically cause harm to me. Well, I guess the massing and the concrete, the non-upgraded materials, I have to walk out my front door and look at this giant thing every single day. And even though parking can't be part of the appeal, it does need to be spoken about, that the lack of parking spaces for these one-bedroom condos is going to be a detriment to my neighborhood. It really is. And at the end of Garden Street, there's a really nice skate park that the city put in, and I love it. I see kids riding by on their bicycles, I see kids riding by on their skateboards and walking. It's a very pedestrian-friendly street right now, and with all this extra parking, the safety of those kids going to the skate park concerns me greatly. We don't even have a stop sign on First and Garden right now. Hopefully that will change too. So I think that is everything that I need to say. I think I've hit every point. Please consider the bonuses for the allowances for them to get a bigger building. They're getting bonuses that they're actually not adhering to, and that would be the use of upgraded materials, which the city has deemed should be for the use of brick and stone, which has been used for the rest of downtown really well. So I ask you for them to do it too. I'm actually excited about a building going across the street. I love Coeur d'Alene and I want it to develop, but I want it to do it well, and I want us to be responsible about it. We have the opportunity on the front end here to really look at this closely and know how this is going to impact this community. I asked them about a community impact analysis on this, and they hadn't even heard of one, they said, which I find hard to believe. I know that Midtown has done a parking study there and how parking and traffic will impact them, and I ask you that you do this here too, because Roosevelt is a wonderful historical place. They've been in business for a long time, and this will be detrimental at the way this is designed at this moment. So I hope that they can all go back. I talked with the developers, to 2 of them, Austin and Brandon. Seem like nice guys. I admire what they're trying to do, and I hope that they can do it better. I know that they can do it better. I think that they're running scared right now. I think they paid a lot of money for that piece of property. They have 5 other investors. They just built a brand new LLC just for this project, and they're scared. They're afraid they're not going to get enough return on their money. When we've had 2 meetings, and each time we talk about something for these as an advocate for the future residents of these condos, if you're trying to get an urban style and have smaller condos with limited parking, well, then there should be bicycle racks. There should be indoor bicycle storage. There should be a conference room if they're trying to target the at-home worker. And most of the buildings I've been into that offer this in the big cities, which they're trying to develop, which I get, they have rooftop decks, they have outdoor green space. This place has nothing. It has giant walls that just have a driveway between the townhouses and the condo. There's not even going to be lighting for those windows. There's no green space. There's no rooftop deck for them. So as an advocate for the future residents, I hope that you'll take in everything that I've said tonight into consideration. And I thank you for your time.
Thank you. Troy, we've got this all listed with minimum or maximum of 10 minutes, but I don't see anybody timing this.
I got it.
Okay, next we have the staff report.
I think that's, we've already given that, so it should go to the applicant.
Okay.
Unless council has additional questions at this time.
Okay.
I just have one question. Other than the photo that you showed, the aerial of what the Google map picture that has the lot right now, is there any other photos that show what that alley looks like, or the adjacent property? I don't think there were any in the packet.
Actually, do you want to see the parking on the alley?
I just want to know visually what's happening in that alley currently,
Okay.
based on what's happening with what's being proposed.
Randy, can you bring up the city map?
I can try to.
I want to see it too.
Did you take over as mayor?
Yes. Sorry. Mr. Mayor.
Put it back in your pocket.
I've got it on my Google map.
There we go.
So that is the overhead picture that I previously showed.
Oh, boy.
That would be the alley behind the property.
It's not, I'm sorry, may I, another couple questions. So it's not paved currently?
I don't believe so.
So there wouldn't be
I think
any-
it will be.
Is it planned to be paved by this project, or I'll
Yes.
ask that question later then?
Yeah, the
And
applicant will
so
address that.
This right here at the left is the parking for the apartment on the corner,
Yes.
okay? And then the Roosevelt Inn is on the other?
Sun Garden down here.
We're on Wallace.
We're on Wallace.
Our
So it's
parking
back
lot
here.
is- Yep, right there.
Oh, they have this.
So what are the cars that are parked right there? Whose parking is that that we're looking at?
That is the parking area of the Roosevelt.
Okay.
Roosevelt.
Diagonal 15 spots, she said.
Oh, I see. Oh, okay. Thank you.
Justin,
Thank
you have a
you.
question?
I do have a question. Randy, was mentioned that when the townhomes are put in, that they will be, I guess, short platted into separate parcels. Is that true?
That I don't know. And the applicant can address that, but for purposes of the FAR bonuses that the DRC had to assess, it was one property and 3 buildings, and that's just right out of the code.
So they did the FAR bonus based on
The total size of the property.
Total size of the property.
.76 acres.
0.76 acres. Okay, so that's that. And one of the reasons I'm concerned about that is that there's 2 different figures here listed for the square footage of the project. And they're both, if you do the math, they're both still within the requirements for the FAR bonuses. But it's curious that there's 2 different figures, and then that doesn't matter that they would end up being separate parcels?
Not under the code.
If they were separate parcels now, how would it affect the decision?
Then, well, the code actually says that they can be separate parcels, but if they're owned by the same person, they are considered as one for purposes of FAR and FAR bonuses.
Thank you.
Thank you, Randy. We now will ask the applicant to come forward, and we're going to keep track of the time this time. Welcome.
Good evening, Council, Mayor. I want to begin. We're not here tonight to seek approval for a variance or a departure from the design guidelines. Our project complies with all the zoning ordinance requirements. With me tonight is Brandon Kaufman and Cody Humphrey. They're members of the development team. If you have any questions of the property owners, they're here to answer. Okay. This is a series of slides that were taken from the Design Review Commission hearing, and we're not going to go through all these. I've just chosen about 12 that are pertinent to the appeal. The one picture that I want to, I'll get to that. This is a context map. It shows the border of the downtown core in purple. Our property is in yellow. The context, red is residential, orange is multifamily, blue is professional office, the purple is retail hospitality, which is the Roosevelt Inn. The green is a school, I think it's a preschool. The orange across the street are the townhomes. There's been some discussion about massing and heights and so forth. The height of our project, the condos would be a height of 39'6" or 37 feet along Garden Avenue. The maximum height allowed is 45 feet. The townhomes across the street appear to exceed 45 feet in height, at least from the street level. I don't know if anybody's seen those, but they're quite high. And in terms of a comparison between the two, I think ours is going to be lower than the townhomes across the street. The next slide shows the downtown core boundary. Our project site is inside the downtown core, and then the red shows the outline of the downtown overlay north. downtown overlay north, the intent of this district is to create a transition between the downtown core and the purely residential areas to the north. Infill development is encouraged, including urban housing, that is like townhouses, courtyard housing with height limit that is comparable to the lower scale development. However, it is intended that the development within that district consist of sufficient density to warrant the provision of parking below grade. Moreover, a limited array of goods and services are appropriate to serve the neighborhood. Traffic calming measures without be applied, and there would be emphasis on preserving existing large trees and providing larger trees. This is a slide from the Design Review Commission hearing. This shows the intent of what we are providing for the open area. As stated in the staff report, to qualify for a bonus, the space must be available for public use between 7 a.m. and dusk. It must be an area equal to 2% of the total interior floor space of the development. It's not 2% of the site. It's 2% of the area of the floor area of the building. No dimension shall be less than 8 feet. Landscaping, textured paving, pedestrian scaled lighting, and seating must be included. Our intent was to provide all of those. The project has a dedicated 10-foot adjacent to the public right-of-way. The sidewalk, the public area is, the dimension is 10 feet from the back of the property line to the building. Then there's a 5-foot sidewalk and a 4-foot plant strip. And we chose to put the public area along Garden because it is a heavily pedestrian traveled street. As Jacqueline mentioned, a lot of pedestrian traffic uses Garden to get to the city beach, the park, Memorial Field, the skate park. So by having that public area with pedestrian seating, pathway lighting, kind of enhances that pedestrian walkway along Garden. So this is a slide looking west from Second and Garden. This is Garden to your right. This is looking west. This is a placeholder. I mean, we haven't spent time designing the water feature, and but our idea, we don't have to have it, I guess, if to qualify for the FAR that we're asking for, but we do intend to have a nice water feature at both intersections of Second and Garden and First and Garden. This is an evening shot that kind of shows the pathway lighting. This is the public open area closer to First Street. Here you can see the seating, and we positioned the seating adjacent to garages so that the windows from the living units are looking right down onto the seating area. Again, the pathway lighting. And here you can get a feel for the 10-foot public way, the winding sidewalk, and then the plant strip. And we do intend to plant that plant strip with flowering ground cover, shrubs, trees. So it's going to be a nice, closer to 19 feet wide. In terms of upscale materials, we do have the decorative concrete base, and we do have a variety of upscale siding materials. We've got the architectural panel. We've got 2 metal sidings. And then we do want to use some wood soffit just to warm up the exterior material. The wood soffit would happen at the entrances and on the underside of the covered terraces. We did touch on this parking. It isn't under the purview of the Design Review Commission, but it is, the project does comply to the parking code. I mean, if it's inadequate, we need to probably change the code, but we're providing 2 parking spaces per townhome in the parking garage, and we're required to have 41 spaces in the parking garage. We've got 42. We will have storage in the parking garage. We will have bike parking. There's been some mention of trash. This is the enclosed trash enclosure. The alley behind the project is 20 feet. Some of the alleys in the downtown core are 15 feet. This is a little wider. The picture that you saw has utility poles inside that alleyway. Those are all going to be removed on the north side. The alley will be paved. I don't know who takes care of the alley now. I know the city doesn't take care of alleys, so I don't know if
That would be me.
yeah. So the Roosevelt probably plows the alley, I don't know. But the owners of this development do plan to plow it. They've got to. I mean, they've got to have access into the parking garage. So it's going to be paved, it's going to be plowed.
That would be 10 minutes.
And then as
sir.
far as snow storage, there's a 6-foot plant green space on both sides of the condominium building that will be available for snow storage. This is a 14-foot driveway width, so there's plenty of room to plow that and stack it onto the side. This is showing that snow storage in blue. It goes the full depth of the site, 110 feet by 6 feet, so we've got a little over 1,300 square feet for snow storage. This is a view of that driveway on the west side of the loft and on the east side of the loft. In terms of massing,
Monty, that would be about 10 minutes, sir.
okay. I think we've covered it. Any questions?
Yes, I do. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is a general question. What do you think of the design review process? I'll tell you what, I'd love to get rid of it, because I think it makes your job harder.
It does. I'd like to get rid of it.
I mean, do you, without it, would you have designed and put up a good building anyway?
Yes.
See? So it's just extra work for you.
It is.
Okay. That'll come up later.
Yes.
Thank you,
Christie.
Mr. Mayor. Hi, Monty. I thought that was you. I haven't seen you in about 20 years. That's Monty. Just a little more clarification. The FAR bonuses, I think, are probably where the most controversy around the project is. And I guess I want some clarification on the public space. You've laid out that you showed the design of the sidewalk, the bench, and the flowers. And is that the entire public space?
That's a good question. And I think there was some mention that that public space area included the driveway. Well, it doesn't. It's 64 feet long by 10 feet wide, 640 square feet on each corner. So that is 1,320 square feet of total public area dedicated permanently as public space. This shows the dimensions of that space. It shows the winding sidewalk that goes in front of it, the park benches. This is not public space. And then to the east, well, it would be the same thing. Uh, 64 feet by 10 feet, 640 square feet. It does not include the driveway. The staff report used the entire site. If you use the entire site, we're 1.4 for an FAR. When I did the Design Review Commission hearing presentation, I used all 11 lots, and we're still under the 2. So it really doesn't matter if you use 11 lots or 1 lot. It works both ways.
How will it be made clear that that's actually public space rather than just part of a condominium only accessible to the people that live there?
Well, it's along the public right-of-way, I think would be one. I think that the intent is to provide, the pathway lighting, the benches, enhance that for public use. And I think because of the location, being along the heavily pedestrian traveled Garden Avenue sidewalk, I think it's a natural to have that enhanced public area to increase that walkway width and landscaping and.
Okay, if I may continue, Mr. Mayor? Yes. Thank you. The art, the 1% of the cost of the building dedicated to art, you didn't really get into that too much, and I think that it's a legitimate question.
Yes.
On what is being spent on the public art.
I've got some calculations. I don't think they're on this slide. Okay, this shows a breakdown of the art. The idea would be more of a kinetic type form of artwork and water feature kind of combined. There hasn't been any art commissioned yet, but in terms of the value of the art. So this is a breakdown of the total construction of the project. It's based on construction costs. We don't have bids yet, but this is an estimate. We're using $150 a square foot for the parking garage, $250 a square foot for the building area. These are realistic estimates. 11 million, a little over 11 million for the total construction cost times 1% is 111,000, which would be the value of the water feature and artwork. That breaks down to 55,000 per corner. You guys are familiar enough with artwork and water features, that'll be burned up in a heartbeat. So that's the value.
Thank you for that. I just had one more, if I may. Because we're still on the the FAR bonuses. The requirement for stone or brick, that is, if you're reading the design review committee specifically, it says stone or brick, and so we're gonna have to have a further discussion about what's the interpretation of that. I guess I'm curious, for your project, why is that not a consideration that maybe you could go back to instead of concrete? Why couldn't it be stone or brick?
We tried putting brick and stone on the base of the building, and it didn't look good. We had several meetings with Ms. Jacqueline. We met with her with the engineering department. We met with her with planning staff. I showed her pictures of brick on the bottom of the building. I said, we'll put brick on the bottom of the building. She says, I don't care about brick on the building. I don't want the building. So we don't have brick. Now, the townhomes across the street have brick, but it's fake brick. It's a vinyl brick. That went through a design review commission hearing, and it got passed. To me, a decorative concrete base that's a backdrop for planting, a durable surface along the alley for snow plowing, it just makes sense.
Okay, thank you, Monty.
Thank you, Monty. Jacqueline, you have 3 to 5 minutes for any additional comments.
Listen, again, disheartening to hear that he just blatantly lied, but oh well. About what I said at the meetings. I actually recorded both those meetings. If you're interested in listening to any of those recordings, there was 2 meetings, and I absolutely did not say I did not want this building. And yes, I am concerned about getting a bonus and not actually using brick or stone when that's what they're getting the bonuses for. I would like you to look at the building, and I think you guys all have a copy. And do you see massing? That's a basic guideline. I'm wondering if you can see that. I can't see that when I look at it. I see big straight walls, big vertical panels. I ask you to take some time and consider all of that needs to be considered in this, with the bonuses, with the parking, with the codes for parking, and look closer into the blueprints of the condos that are being deemed as 1-bedroom apartments in order to calculate their parking garage. So I hope that you'll take your time and actually look closely.
Thank you. Okay, I will close the public hearing, and now that is up to the council to debate the issue and render a decision, whether that be to uphold design review decision or refute it or return it to design review for now. Woody?
Yes.
Thank you for stepping out there.
Well, this has been an interesting process. First time I think we've ever had to do this. It kind of gives you a perspective on, it seems awfully deep to me, all these little things that mean something and you get something for it. I was thinking back when we say design review, we want the town to have a certain look. And I was thinking back, being a historical guy, they didn't have that problem at the turn of the century. People, craftsman homes, and we all live in different types of environments, and there's certain personalities, you know, to downtown and all around. And I don't understand if that was what the intent of this design review was, because pretty much everything that I can think of is new. Places on Sherman and stuff, everything kind of looks the same. It's the new cool, I guess, or whatever. Very flat, very black, very gray, a lot of glass, stairs and ramps and steel, and you know what? That's fine. That's what architects build, and maybe that's where people want to live. I'm having a hard time trying to wrap my head around the whole thing. think what I've learned from this is that whether she wins or not, she brought up some issues that I think need to be looked at. And Dan, you've talked about parking. We were building parking garages. That was our answer to things. And there's some other issues that need to be addressed down the line. So I've kind of come away with this with a bunch of, let's look at the code. Do we really need this? And if we didn't, what would we have? Would people build plain Jane things? Nah, I don't think so. Because where they're building them out in the other parts of the city, things are, well, I hate to use the word cool, because I don't think they're necessarily cool, but people like them and people want to live here. And the affordability thing, I think about that and forget about it, at 250 a square foot. That's probably not real practical. I think the parking issue is something that needs to be addressed. This doesn't touch it. We don't really do it. Public art on a corner for $55,000. God, I think you could do better. Public space is a walkway with a bench on it. Okay, that makes our parks much more valuable than I thought they were, So I don't have answers to this. I think it's been an interesting process to listen to this, and the defenders defending, and the lady who lives across the street, her house is higher because she's on a hill, if nobody knows the neighborhood. Those are up on the hillside. Again, I appreciate somebody looking at things with the detail she has, but I feel like it's way over my head. You guys are gonna need to help put this into words, so I've done my la-di-da.
I want to remind the council, though, that the issue before the council tonight is not whether we have a design review commission or not. The issue is not whether we need to change the standards. That's an issue for another time. The only issue before us right now is this appeal and how you want to act on this appeal. So please keep your discussion to that. Dan?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and I'm going to ignore what you just said. I agree with Woody, and I've asked staff to come back to us with parking for downtown. No one's going to go downtown if there's no place to park. Why would I want to buy a condo in this building when I know that my wife doesn't have, or me, doesn't have a place to park? Depends on who gets home first. That's bad, and it's going to spill into the neighborhood, and we've had that discussion. That's coming forward. I also don't like the design review. I think it just adds more time and money. So say we reject this based on the FAR, based on the art, based on that there's no brick or stone on the side of the building. What does that mean? That means these guys are spending more money. They're spinning government wheels. They're just wasting time, bureaucracy. We should just get rid of it. They don't design, like Woody said, they don't design ugly stuff. You design ugly stuff, no one's ever going to live there. So realistically, we should uphold it. Their decision, I think it's dumb, and I don't agree with what happened, but that's the way the law is written. I do think we need to go back. We need to look at parking. Stephanie, that's the key here, and it has to be done in the code. We can't do it here. This is my second design review appeal hearing. I don't think you were at the first one, Woody, but the first one I was at was 11 years ago for the One Lakeside Tower. And it was the same thing. It was Hal Damiano. If you have been around, you know who Hal is. And he lived in the condos right behind One Lakeside. And the fact is, they just didn't like the building being there. But yet it went through design review, and they had to choose textures and colors and all this BS. And the fact is, the building was going to be built at the height it was going to be built. Height restrictions is another thing I think we should look at. The truth is, if you like the design, then the design review committee did their job. And that's pretty much it. I think Stephanie brought up some valid points, but this isn't going to stop the project. It isn't going to change the parking. It isn't going to change the snow. All those are very valid issues. We have to address those in code. I wish we could do them now. I wish we could have done them 11 years ago. But it has to be done in the code, and we're working on that. It's going to take some time. It's not going to stop the project, but, that's kind of where we are. I wish we had better news.
You still need to go back and make a decision on this issue. You can pontificate all you want on this other stuff.
All right,
And,
fine.
and quite frankly, parking is really a challenge. On one hand, I think of that song about they paved paradise and put up a parking lot, and I don't want to do that. You know, you go through Europe and you look at a lot of areas where they live with a lot less parking than we do, with a lot less roadway, which means that you've got a lot less impermeable space to absorb rain and rainwater, et cetera. So that's a real challenging question. On the other hand, you're right, Dan, we want people to be able to come down here and conveniently park. Absolutely. But right now, the only problem that is before you is to either uphold or, what would you call it, refuse or turn it back to the DRC.
So I'll just save some time and make a motion that we affirm the decision of the Design Review Commission, as much as I don't like it, to refer the project back, that we refer for it, and I guess that's it.
What was your motion? Sorry.
We just affirm the decision of the Design Review Commission, and that's.
We have a second to that. Clerk, take the roll. Oh.
I just wanted to say, I understand where you're coming from. We've got to fix the code. We've got to address the parking. We've got to address heights. This isn't the place to do it, just like the last design review. But I understand this is the only place where you can cry for help, and I'm glad you did. So thank you.
Yes, Christie.
Under discussion. Well, the one area that I probably would have remanded back to the Design Review Committee is the stone and brick. I think that needs to be clarified. If we want to somehow make it clear that that's not really what we mean, that's just an example, then I think we need to do a better job of that. And Monty had said that he'd looked at brick, and so it's really not a matter of not wanting to comply. So I'll go along with the affirming it because they are willing to comply. But we do need to have some further discussion with our Design Review Committee about what does that actually mean.
Well, actually, here I'm going to go against my own advice here. I think that the whole issue of design review, because it's still very subjective. Even though you put in these guidelines, it's a very subjective thing based upon what you like or what I like. So the real question comes up as to whether that's even an appropriate avenue for ensuring that we have buildings in town that we think are good for the long-term health of the community. Other discussion on the motion?
Mr. Mayor, I just wanted to make a couple of observations. One is I appreciate Ms. Doyle bringing these items forward. Each one of these is a valid concern. I think parking is going to be a real challenge down there. And snow removal, boy, good luck, guys, in getting somebody consistent to get down that alley and get that done. All of these things, there's little signs that say this property should be open from morning till dusk, but public space, it's just really an enhancement to the property. So I can see that all of these would be valid concerns and with valid objections as to wanting to have that FAR bonus reviewed. But we have ordinances and codes that need to be changed that address those, not Design Review Commission decisions. So I'm going to affirm this because that's what's before us is what the law provides. The only thing I had a little bit of gray area about is in the very beginning, Randy's presentation said that there were a few of those items that we did have purview to send back. But as I even think about that now, all it's going to do is just delay the process with really limited impact as to any change to the neighborhood or anything else. So I'm comfortable in affirming the Design Review Commission's position, and I think that Miller Stauffer Architects do a great job at trying to get the most that they can out of a property for the city and follow the code. So I appreciate everybody's time and effort on this.
Well, oh, sorry, go ahead.
I just have one small point that I don't want to miss through all this. First, I want to thank Ms. Doyle for coming and sharing her concerns and working through this process. I also want to thank our city team for mediating some meetings between both parties to work together beforehand. And I'd also just like to make a request that we follow up on the outdated material of the design review committee. Make sure we do that.
Thank you. Will the clerk take the roll, please?
Coogan?
Yeah.
English?
Yes.
Wood?
Yes.
Evans?
Yes.
Miller?
Aye.
McEvers?
Yes.
Next item before the agenda is, you want a break? 5 minutes.
Recess,
We're
okay.
going to take a 5-minute recess. We'll bring the council meeting back to order, and the next item of business is, there was a consensus at the last meeting to raise the salaries of council and the mayor, and that would start in 2024. Further discussion? If not, I need a motion.
Mr. Mayor, I will make a motion, as soon as I find it, to amend Municipal Code Section 2.72.010 to set council salary at $15,000 per year and mayor salary at $38,400 per year.
Mr. Mayor,
Actually,
Yeah.
Did I do that wrong?
yep.
This is a council bill.
Dispense with the rule on
Go to the next page.
Yeah, okay. I don't have my glasses on. All right, I'd make a motion to dispense with the rule and read Council Bill number 23-1000 once by title only.
Second.
Have a motion second. Clerk, take the roll, please.
English,
Yes.
Wood,
Yes.
Evans,
Yes.
Miller,
Yes.
McEvers,
Yes.
Gookin.
Yeah.
Mr. Mayor, I'd make a motion to adopt
And
Council Bill.
we have to read by the title, read by title.
See, I don't know what I'm doing up here.
you're such a hurry to make like
Would you please read the title?
$200 more a month, right?
Oh, I'm in the
Council
stab
Bill
right.
23-1000, an ordinance amending Section 2.72.010 of the Municipal Code of the City of Coeur d'Alene, Kootenai County, Idaho, changing the annual salaries of mayor and council members as follows. Mayor's salary shall be set at $38,400, and council salary shall be set at $15,000, effective January 1st, 2024. Both to include an annual cost of living increase based on what is negotiated for exempt staff members, repealing all ordinances and parts of ordinances in conflict herewith, providing a severability clause, providing for the publication of a summary of this ordinance and an effective date hereof.
Now I need a motion.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And then discussion afterward, right? Okay, my motion is to adopt Council Bill 23-1000.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Further discussion?
Mr. Mayor, I would
Steve?
clarify in my motions that this increase was discussed to affect council that's seated in 2024. And we have no idea what the three of us may be doing, but this is meant to keep us on a track moving forward so that we can address future council and the needs as we move forward.
Dan?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So, this is our invocation tonight. The pastor made a comment about how we do things selflessly for the city and donate our time. And I have always said that public officials should be compensated well. I think Congress, I mean, I know I'm going to take heat for this, but I think Congress people are grossly underpaid. It's like a $5 million a year job, but they don't get paid that. And I always think people who work in the public sector should get paid what they're worth. I think your salary being set at $38,400 is low, but it's what the code says. I like that there's an escalator in there. But in this case, for this decision, I can be selfish, because I'm not making a decision for the rest of the city or, you know, being like we were before. I mean, like the building isn't going to affect me, but I have to make a decision that's in the best interest of the city. In this case, I can be selfish. I don't need the money, so I'm going to vote no on this.
Further, Dan?
Well, I guess I would just give the input that I would ask that you consider taking it for the people who were coming, and then you could choose to donate that to the library or parks department, and you get a tax write-off too.
Thank you for the thought.
I have some thoughts myself. I think your point is well taken, both with our federal representatives as well as our state representatives. And the concern that I have is that a lot of the qualified people who should be serving can't afford to do so and take the time out of their own business. There's too much of a loss there. And so we shouldn't be reticent to pay more. In fact, it's amazing that we have a legislature because they're still, I think, $17,000 a year, plus their living expenses while in Boise. But it's quite a sacrifice, and there are a lot of people who just can't afford to leave their business. You know, there's a good example right up here. We had an excellent legislator in Freeman Duncan, but he couldn't afford to, he was losing too much of his practice while trying to serve in Boise. And it's just too bad because he was a very talented legislator, but he couldn't do that. And I think the same thing applies at this level. You know, certainly I'm retired, so it's not as big of an issue for me, but in trying to recruit people, we need to compensate them for their time and be aware of that. I guess the alarm says my time is up. Anything else? Will clerk take the roll, please?
English.
Yes.
Wood.
Yes.
Evans.
Yes.
Miller. Aye. McEvers.
Aye.
Gookin.
No.
Thank you. The motion carries. Resolution 23002 with approval of our compliance plan in 2 minutes.
This is really a requirement of us taking some of the federal ITD grant dollars. It kind of flows down from those dollars. It is a plan that we've had on the books for several years. We've just never formalized it. So we have a new compliance officer coming in from the state. So we thought we better get our I's dotted, our T's crossed, and get this thing actually approved. And then we look forward to working with Connie Rosine and perfecting it as we go forward with our new relationship.
Dan.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We have to accept this whole thing. We can't just cherry pick it or add to it. It's kind of like
Yeah.
it's a federal strings thing, isn't it?
It is, and it's the actual form that's on the ITD webpage. So this is the form they give you to make your plan, and you fill in the blanks, basically. We're hoping that as things have progressed, the checklist that happens with the federal grants kind of serves the purpose of some of the guts of the plan, and maybe we can work with Connie in narrowing it down, saying this is kind of duplicative of all the other things you have us do already, so.
Yeah. I mean, it's fine. I mean, I believe this city just does not discriminate, so it doesn't change anything we do.
Is that a motion, Mr. Gookin?
Oh, gosh, will Mr. Gookin make a motion? I would move that we approve Resolution 23002, which is approving the City Title VI Compliance Plan.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Further discussion on the motion? Clerk, take the roll, please.
Wood.
Yes.
Evans.
Yes.
Miller. Aye. McEvers.
Yes.
Gookin.
Yep.
English.
Yes.
You owe
Chris? 2 minutes.
All right. Quick.
about 30 seconds left over from her.
She yielded her time
Okay,
to
your
me,
time's
she
up.
said, yes. So thank you, Mayor and Council, for having me before you tonight. I'm here to ask you to approve our on-call professional consultant services list. And it's kind of strange because I put this out in 2021. We selected the consultants in 2022, and our eagle-eyed city attorney pointed out that it has to be approved by a political subdivision, which he said a department is not a political subdivision, but the city is. So, for this formality, I'm here to ask you to approve our list that I had sent out in 2022, and then again with this item on the agenda. I would stand for any questions.
Christie?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Chris, I did review the vendor list that you provided and all the different areas of qualifications, and it looks like you tried to get at least 5 different contractors for each specialized area. Some you only maybe had 3, and I would imagine that's just from lack of people applying.
Correct.
My only question is, how do you choose on each individual project? If it's under $50,000, then you're not required to pull a committee together. And how are we sure that we're making sure we're rotating some of those people that have applied and everyone's getting a fair shot at it?
Well, going through and kind of giving projects to each of the consultants is something I've been striving to do. For instance, on our stormwater projects, we've hired 3 different consultants for those out of the list in the last year. So, and then the way that we choose them is by looking at their specific expertise, because we can always go back to their statement of qualifications and see that they, for instance, are really good at innovative stormwater treatments or something like that. Then we'll choose them for that. On architectural services, the item that Todd's bringing up next, the reason why we were looking towards that architect was because they had a track record of low-cost remodels for other city agencies. So that's kind of what we look at each time, just based on their qualifications.
Mr. Mayor, may I ask?
Go ahead.
Do you feel that we've done a pretty good job of utilizing more than one? We want to make sure one vendor doesn't dominate every city contract. Do we feel pretty good about that so far?
Yes, the projects that I've put out, I've definitely spread them out as much as I could.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so a motion would be
Mr.
in
Mayor,
order?
I'd like to move for approval of 23003, approving on-call services consultant services list.
Second.
Have motion is second. Clerk, take the roll, please.
Evans,
Yes.
Miller,
I actually had a
sorry.
question.
Oh, I'm
We
sorry.
missed discussion. So I just was going
I
to ask
looked
this.
that way, not too
I
quickly,
know, we're
I
in a hurry.
guess.
I'll use part of the 30 seconds. So is this, I tried to understand, when you put this out, the Idaho state statute dictate how you advertise for the submissions from people who want to be on this list?
Yeah.
And how often do you have to update this list? And is that code-driven as well?
The first time we did it, it was for 3 years. This time we decided to go 5 years. I'm not sure what the limitations are and how far out we can go with that.
5 years is the maximum.
5 years is the max, okay. And there are Idaho laws in terms of how you advertise. That has to be like 2 times in the paper, things like that.
Okay. All right, thank you.
I
Appreciate that.
apologize. Clerk, continue with the roll, please.
Evans,
Yes.
Miller,
Aye.
McEvers,
Yes.
Gookin.
Yeah.
English,
Yes.
Wood.
Yes.
Motion carries. Thank you, Chris. Todd?
Thank you, Mayor and council members. Thank you, Chris. I feel I get 10 seconds now. You went a little long. So I come before council and mayor tonight to talk about a remodel for our facility at 3800 North Ramsey Road. Staff is requesting of agreement with Design West to provide architectural services for the streets and engineering department. This facility was built in 1990. It's had a few tweaks here and there in the heating system and stuff like that. Other than that, it's pretty much as it was back then. This project was approved in our budget this year. We have about $1 million to spend on it, hopefully much less, but with construction costs, that's why we want to start now and get someone to design what we're looking for. We are looking to do some ADA upgrades. We don't really have much for ADA compliance in our building right now. We would like to add some office space to spread some people out. We have a few people that actually are in spots who were formerly closets. We've grown that much, so approval of this agreement will allow the city to begin the process and provide architectural, structural, mechanical, and electrical engineering. This firm is going to help with all of that. They have put a price tag of $49,000 to do the work, not to exceed, for this phase of the project. So staff is asking that council and mayor approve this service agreement.
Questions? Woody?
Just a quick one. So is this any expansion? You get more places to put trucks and cars and work on them or anything like that? Or is it just bringing it up
It's going to be a little
code?
bit of give and take. So we inherited part of the water department's bays when they moved to their new location. So currently, like where our striping truck parks, if you're familiar with the building, we will put a two-story addition in that bay that will give us all the engineering office space upstairs. And then we'll have a conference room in our main entry into the building right below that. It'll help us to keep track of who enters the facility. So, yeah, we are hoping to add some office space. It will come at a cost. We will lose a little parking.
So no footprint expansion necessarily at this point?
No, that is a tilt-up building, and so it'd be very expensive to add on to it. So we're trying to move things around inside, add some locker space, things like that as well.
I think that's awesome. Way to go.
So then, will you put the poorly behaved employees out in the old water building?
Yeah, that will be the timeout area.
Speaking of me.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to move to approve, so you can go home. 23004.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Discussion on the motion?
Mr. Mayor, just clarifying, Todd, I think you said this already, but I missed it. This was already planned for in the last budget cycle, and it's.
That is correct,
You've got
yeah.
the funds identified.
Yes.
Thank you.
All those in favor of the motion respond with aye.
Aye.
Those opposed with nay. Motion carries.
It's listed as a roll call. Are we still kosher?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yes, it should be a roll call.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Would the clerk take the roll, please?
Miller.
Aye.
McEvers.
Yes.
Gookin.
Yep.
English.
Yes.
Wood.
Yes.
Evans.
Yes.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Motion and second. Do I have to do a roll call?
No, but there should be extensive discussion.
No discussion on a motion to adjourn.
Aye.
All those in favor respond with aye.
Aye.
Opposed with nay. Motion carries.
He was saying the.